So anyway,
We're live.
Okay, hello everybody. The owl is on. So everything you say from this point is going to be broadcast forever. So I just want to introduce, for those that haven't met her, it is Mary Beth Bianchi. Did I say right?
Close.
Close. She knows more about water districts and this particular water district than anybody I know. So if you would please proceed.
Sure. So hi, everybody. Most of you, I think, know me. As the supervisor said, my name is Mary Beth Bianconi. I work with Delaware Engineering, and just here to kind of give you guys an update about where we are with the water line replacement project. In case you're wondering, I am looking at my June 19th, 2024 presentation. For those of you who are here for that, I had a little slideshow. I am kind of just referencing this because really from June 19th, 2024 to today, not much has changed. So Jeff did, well, we can talk about that too. It's really not substantially different than what we were in 2024. So really quick, most of you know the history, right? Original Scheller Park Water District, right? The original line was the water supply for the village of Coxsackie. It's over 100 years old. It's pit cast. Y'all will remember in 2020, much to our dismay, it broke underneath the thruway. We had to do an emergency repair. That cost a ton of money, and you guys are paying that debt back, so it's very expensive. I'm just going to say that. It is very expensive. No one's saying it's not. It is very expensive. We looked to see if we could get grant funding for that, but because it was an emergency, we couldn't get money for something we already spent money on. Your water district, just in case y'all don't know, was created in 1974. In 1972, the original houses were served by 1 and 2 inch plastic pipes above the ground, and the people who lived there came, I don't know if anybody was here then, and petitioned the town to create a water district because it was untenable, right? So the replacement of the balance of the water line after the break, we replaced about 350 feet. It was just to make the connection underneath the thruway because we were trying to reduce the cost at the time during that break in 2020. The new project is to put a new water line to connect to where we went underneath the thruway from Route 9W out and up across the field, connecting into Scheller Park. It does kind of go cross lots. The old cast iron water line goes underneath Diedrich's Mobile Home Park. It literally goes under trailers, so needs to be moved. That's the original project that we designed. We went to DOH to get approvals for that project, Department of Health. They approved these things. You would think that they would be saying, isn't this great? You guys are replacing this old line. And instead they have sent us 1,000 questions, 99% of which are just like, oh, we don't like that you put a period at the end of the sentence, change it to a comma. So we've been doing that for a while. Our project cost, the question about the cost, our original construction cost estimate in 2024 for the construction was between $300,000 and $350,000. Right now, including the change order that we just signed, we are at $335,000. We are inside of the construction budget. That has not changed. So I know there's all these sort of like, oh my God, it's all of this out of control stuff. It's not. It is exactly where we thought it was going to be. It's pretty much almost in the midpoint of where we thought we were going to be for construction. Engineering costs have gone up. They have gone up because of this regulatory stuff that we have had to do. We are dismayed by that, but at the end of the day, we got to get Department of Health to sign off on this. So we also had to get other permits that were not originally anticipated because we were literally replacing the existing line. So the engineering costs have gone up from what we originally thought we were going to be in about the $70,000 line item. We are over that. We don't have final costs yet. We are over that. I'm just telling you right now, we don't want to be, but we are. So we're doing everything we can to contain those costs. Our original total construction estimate, total cost estimate, all in was about $420,000. We are just short of that at this point. We're going to try to stay around that $420,000 if we can. That is our goal. A lot of this stuff is out of our control. We do not control the State Department of Health. So we wish we did because we would have had approvals long ago. The one thing I want to note is how this is project's being paid for. When we did the original project in 2020, you'll remember it was early days of COVID. We had our meetings like at the park, right? We couldn't all be together, all of those kinds of things. The town took a bond to pay those construction costs. I don't remember our total cost, but the town, looked at different options for how long to borrow that money, all of those kinds of things. And I think the decision was made to maybe not string it out forever, pay it a little bit more quickly and get people out from underneath it. For this project, the town's intention is to use something called ARPA funds, which was American Rescue Program Act or something like that, basically COVID money, right? So one of the things, and the supervisor was asking me about this earlier, I've been working in the region here in Coxsackie, New Baltimore for about 25 years. When we began working here, one of the things we were trying to understand is how is the water system constructed? How is the sewer system constructed? We were surprised to learn that there were about 40 houses that were on an almost 120-year-old water line. That's not typical. We don't normally see that. So for a long time, we've identified that line is vulnerability and needs to be replaced. A 120-year-old water line serving 40 houses is not a good circumstance. It's out in the middle of the field. It's pit cast. A lot of things can happen. Runs in the throughway. A lot of things can happen.
This is the same one that we're talking about?
Yes, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So we identified a long time ago this line should be replaced. But if we look at just typical ways that we replace water lines, right? If we were to bond replacing the whole water line, it would bury everybody in debt. So we've looked at this for a long time and said we need to find a way to get an outside source of funds so that somebody else can help share the burden of replacing the entire length of the line. It's very hard to do, though, because the money that comes from the state and federal government to support water projects and sewer projects is based on a couple things. Where a drinking water project is based on public health concerns. So if you have contamination, like y'all hear about PFAS, you hear about lead in your water, those kinds of things, you can go get grant money to do those projects. But replacing a plain Jane water line out in the middle of nowhere does not get you any grant funds. If you don't like that, talk to your senators, your Congress people, because they're the ones who make the decision about where the money gets spent. So placing a water line is not something we can generally get a grant for. Because the grants are focused on public health, the environment. They're also focused on areas of economic depression. And while certainly I'm not about to say everybody here is a multimillionaire and can just write a check for things, it is relative to friends and neighbors. And we have a lot of friends and neighbors who have less ability to pay even than our 40 homes in Scheller Park. So we tried numerous times to get funding for this project. You may remember for the wastewater project, we were able to get some funding to help defray the cost of the wastewater project. For the water line project, we've tried many avenues. We continue to try. We actually were just talking to the state about trying to get more money for this project in the last week or so. So we've been trying, but it was very hard to say, say 5-10 years ago, okay, we're going to have this plan, we're going to have a grant, and we're going to be able to replace the water line to Scheller Park. So we have been on the lookout for, is there a source of funds out there that we can get that the community can use to replace this water line? Along comes COVID and along comes federal legislation, and I'm not being political here, whether you like it or not, they sent a ton of money out into our communities, just a ton with no strings attached. It was just, here's money, spend it on some public purpose. So the town of New Baltimore received, I don't remember what the total amount was, $332,000. So the town, we talked at length about this project. We said, this is an opportunity because there's no strings attached. You didn't have to meet some criteria. You didn't have to be super poor. You didn't have to have a pile of dead bodies in the streets to get the money. So the town, in my view, made a pretty bold decision because this money could have gone anywhere in the town. Could have gone to a park, could have gone anywhere in the town. But I will say, I was pretty insistent with the town board in saying, I do not know when there will be a day in the future when you will get a grant that has no strings attached that you can use to replace this water line. So the town made a commitment to use this money to serve and help roughly 40 houses in a community with thousands of houses, right? So you know, I just want everybody to kind of understand what's going on here. So the town took that those grant funds, and is applying it to this project. So that is helping a lot. We do have a gap in funding. We always knew that. If I go back again to my 2024 numbers here, we were looking at about a $420,000 project against $332,000 in grant funds. There is a gap. That has existed for all of time in this project, right? So I know the town right now, we've been talking with our state senator. We've been talking with other resources to see if we can get funds to fill that gap. In the meantime, construction on the project has occurred on half of it. The west half is done. The east half is getting restarted right now, and will be replaced. The east half is being replaced on a new alignment. It'll go straight off 9W, straight across and connect to where we built the thruway connection underneath the thruway. That project is restarting right now. They needed to have access. They need to close a shoulder on the thruway where if you're driving up the thruway where the guardrail starts, they're going to use that as a way to get into the power line right away where they're staging their pipe. And Aaron Flack, who I think most of you know, owns a tiny little triangle of land just off the thruway, and he has given permission for them to drive across that land and use that land for this construction project. Access on the other side is also through land owned by the Flacks, sort of one of the Flacks multitude of companies, and they have given their permission there. They asked for no compensation or anything like that. So that's what's happening. That is remobilizing now. They are working to get their trees cut and cleared very quickly, like as in this week or next. And then the whole project is anticipated to be concluded in a couple of weeks. It's relatively short once they have access and they're in, and they put the pipe together and fuse the pipe in place. So that's kind of where we stand. Our original schedule, that was actually pretty much our original schedule. We had hoped, we had securing the easements in the summer of 24, regulatory review we had apparently optimistically in the summer of 24, because we're still not done with that. Bidding in the fall of 24, which we did do. And then construction starting in the spring of 25, which it was a bit delayed. And I will say the contractor was willing to hold their prices without changing anything much longer. We normally have a fairly short window from when a contractor submits a bid to when we have to give award or tell them we are rebidding the job. They said they would hold their prices while we were working our way through these regulatory issues. So they have stood by that and they have done that. So that's kind of where we are. On a second note, in doing all of this work and in looking at Diedrich's Trailer Park, one of the issues that came up was folks may remember, there was a fire, a couple of structures were burned. That is in the town of Coxsackie. The town of Coxsackie is working with the village of Coxsackie to install a hydrant in the park on one of the vacant parcels so that there will be another fire hydrant in Diedrich's Park because there's never been one there and there's one as needed. So that's kind of where we are. Did I?
No, I was on the phone with DOH this morning.
Oh yeah, I got a chance to ask you.
Yes, it was, they're actually looking to have on the, of all things, another fire hydrant to put at the end of the old line near where it's going to be disconnected from the thruway pipes. So they want another one out that way.
Yeah, a flushing hydrant,
Yeah.
but they're not. So, and I don't know if you saw the engineer's response to that. They're not looking at how that will actually operate.
No, I know. He
So-
didn't know either.
Exactly. So he's looking at a book.
That was a
and-
guy out of Syracuse of all places, which I didn't expect.
Yeah, so the original review was not with the Syracuse division, but we submitted our plans to the Department of Health through the normal reviewing channel, and 8 months went by and we didn't even get an acknowledgement they had received them. So we called and complained and said, you can't do nothing for 8 months. So their response was to reassign it to the Syracuse division to get somebody to look at it.
And that fellow didn't know that line was going to be disconnected.
Right. So he's not looking at the plans. Either can't read the plans or we're not sure what's going on there. But we're continuing to work on that, as you saw today.
Yeah, I talked to him.
So that's kind of our status. That's where we are with the project. And, you know, I think really I was amazed when, you know, we needed to do this presentation tonight. And I said, it literally is, it's the same as the last time we were here. Not that much has changed. Some time has gone by. We've had to jump through more regulatory hoops than we really think is reasonable. But I'm not the regulator, so.
Well, until some of these delays, DEC had a role in this too.
We did end up having to, there is a water body, a little tiny stream that we are crossing. That stream is, the way the DEC regulations work is if there's a water body and it's not classified by DEC, you do not need a permit. This water body was not classified, so we did not apply for a permit. As Department of Health started asking questions, they called the DEC and said, we think you should issue a permit. DEC said, we don't think we should issue a permit. DOH called the Army Corps of Engineers and said, we think you should issue a permit. And the Army Corps of Engineers said, we don't think we should issue a permit. So we went around the mulberry bush on whether or not we needed a permit to cross an unclassified stream for about 3 months. This is the kind of stuff, I mean, I got to tell you, it's very frustrating when we're sitting there saying, time is ticking. This project is already underway. Why are you asking these questions now? You had 10 months to ask these questions. 10.
One of the increases in cost have to do with the prevailing wage increase as well. I mean, I don't know if you can address that much.
I don't know about, I mean, because the bids are the bids. So we're paying whatever it was bid at. So the contractor, if the prevailing wage changed from the time that they bid it to today, they have to figure that out. We are not paying for that. They bid it, they said they would hold their price. They've held their price.
Okay, so what is it that we're here for exactly? I know that there's a $35,000 gap, but isn't there, you make a bid and you follow through on the bid?
There's $92,000.
I don't know, it's all I read.
So the bid is,
$35,000.
So the bid-
Is what she's talking.
so the
But I don't know.
I think
Who's paying that?
$35,000 that you were talking about was we had a change order recently. So we had a $71,000 deduction on the project and a $35,000 increase on the project, but that is all included in the dollars I just went over with you.
Oh, okay.
So there's
That
no
was
new
not clear.
costs. That is all included in those
But
dollars.
usually a bid is a bid is a bid. And
So,
whether costs go up or down.
correct, and none of these changes have
So-
anything to do with whether costs went up or down. They have to do with the responding to the regulatory comments and changes we had to make to the plans that we bid to make the Department of Health happy.
Did our costs go up or down?
They are,
Or are we
you're
still not
actually,
sure?
you are, so from a construction perspective, if you go look at what was bid to what you're paying today, you're about $30,000 less than what it was at bid.
Okay.
So there's no additional cost? Or there is an additional cost?
There already was.
So
that's gonna be
And we're not
added to
paying
our-
for the fire hydrants.
Right, so we're not paying for the environment. So the construction costs, we had to make Department of Health happy, we had to take a bunch of stuff out of the project and then add new different things in. On balance, it ended up being about $30,000 less today as we stand here than it was when we bid it.
But there's still there's still money that's gonna have to come up with it, we're gonna have to pay.
Right, and then if we go back, remember, we had remember my numbers, a $420,000 budget against $330,000 in grant. That is from 2024. That has not changed.
So what other water districts does the lines benefit? Like, does it
Only you.
benefit the village of Cooksaki? Because I think we should combine the water districts to alleviate the cost that
So-
32 residents are.
So couple of points on that. One is we can't go cross town and village lines to combine stuff. You're in New Baltimore, the only way to do that would be for the county to come in and create some kind of a county-wide system, which I work with those down in Orange County and Saratoga County. Those are decades in the making. They're not something that happens rapidly, right? So this line is going to connect on 9W, go, if you know 9W at all, where the blue house is, Slater's, the blue house. It's going to go on that vacant piece of land across there, connect to the thruway through the field and pop up in Scheller Park. So the only people who benefit from this line are the people in Scheller Park. So this is one of the challenges when we have
But the
districts
town of
with,
New Baltimore presents that water line to us. Because we can't have a well You have to have the
We'll
water
pay for
line.
the water line if we have.
So they're representing the water line, right? Town of Baltimore represents the water line.
Hmm,
That would
It's
gladly
their
put it
water
well
line.
if I
Not
wanted to
really.
buy
We're paying
water.
them the bill.
not really, right? So
So
New York,
we own the water line.
New York State law, right? Article 12 of the town law, so you can go look it up,
Well,
right?
You know what? You already lost me. I'm not
Yeah.
a lawyer.
Well, so that's the problem, right? We don't all get to make whatever decision we want, because if we did, I would have had your water line done a long time ago and it would have been a lot less expensive, right? But I don't get to do that because I have to follow all these ridiculous rules
Right.
that are established by the state largely. So the state of New York turns to the town of Baltimore and says, if you are going to have an area in your town that is going to have a service, water line, sewer line, just like the Hamlet has sewer.
Right.
If you live in New Baltimore, you're not paying for Hamlet sewer.
Right.
Because you have nothing to do with it,
Right.
right? It's the same thing. So Hamlet doesn't have any water. They don't pay for water. They pay for sewer because they have sewer. You guys have water, you pay for water. New York State is who sets that out. New York State says we gotta create a boundary. That's why there's a water district. You have 3 of them in this town. Water district number 1 is up at Ravenna. It's where right south of the village, there's water lines that come down into the town from the village of Ravenna, and that's water district number 1, and that was created, I think, in the 50s. But in the 50s, so post World War II, right?
Goes to Aquatuck Road.
Water district number 2 is you guys, created in the 70s because some developer came up there, was gonna build a ton of houses and use that old line that had basically been abandoned to bring water. The water used to go from the Sportsman's Club down, all the way down to the village of Coxsackie. It was the original water supply for the village of Coxsackie. That line got abandoned in the 60s when they built the reservoir that's up past the Corey Steakhouse, where the Corey Steakhouse used to be. In 1963, they built that reservoir and they essentially abandoned this line. In the 1970s, some property owner came and said, I'm going to build houses and I'm going to connect these houses. I wasn't here, right? We didn't make those decisions, right? That's unfortunate that we are now dealing with that set of circumstances. If I had been here, I would have said, what are you doing? Why are you being allowed to connect such a small number of houses to, even in the 1970s, that line was very, very, very old. It did not make sense to do that, but they were allowed to do it. So that's what happened in 1974. And I would urge you, I can send it to you guys. I read the petitions and the public hearing from 1974. It's tear jerking what people were living with in their homes with plastic pipes in the ground that froze in the wintertime and they had no water, right? So the property owners at the time came and begged to the town and said, you have to do something. So the town created the water district in 1974 and bonded, I forget, like 80 grand. It wasn't that much money because it was 1974.
And you said it, the town created it. So
And
why
petition
isn't
of the property
town
owners.
responsible for it?
They are. That's what they're doing right now. That's what we're doing right now.
Created it.
That's what we're doing right now. Remember
Yeah, but
that
you're gonna hit us with the bill.
that is the way New York state law says that it works.
Yeah,
You know, I've only been in this town for 3 years. I wasn't here when the pipe broke. My daughter works 2 jobs so she can afford her own house.
Understood.
Now
Understood.
you're gonna tell us you need another $90,000?
I
No, we don't have it.
understand.
Most of the people in the community aren't here because they're already in bed. They're 70, 80 years old. How are they affording it? And
I,
they don't even know. When they see the pamphlet, they look at it and go, oh, just some nonsense.
understand.
This is ridiculous. This whole project, there's been 3 guys that put that water line in. Who inspected that water line while they were doing the work?
We did that.
There was nobody here.
Yes.
I
we
was
had an
there. I
inspector.
lived right there. I could see what they were doing.
We don't have an inspector every minute because we don't need an inspector every minute. But again, the
Oh, so
state
he
tells
came
us,
before they started digging and he showed up now when they're starting to open up a hole on the other end.
the state tells us when we have to have someone there and we follow the state's rules.
Right, yeah, well,
That is what we do.
not only that, I could have dug that thing with an excavator in a half a day.
As I
Rather
told
than
you,
having something that drills through the ground that costs $2 million and they want us to pay for it.
I don't know. I know you're unhappy. I cannot change the way the world is. I cannot change New York state laws. I cannot change the Department of Health. I cannot change public bidding requirements that tell this town that they have to do these things. I cannot change any of those things. You can get in touch with your senator, your assembly person and say, this is ridiculous. They're the ones who created these laws.
Right, but
Well,
don't we
back in the
elect a
50s.
representative to do that for us?
I've been to the senator's office down in
Yeah, you
Kingston and
went
all.
last year in October, just before the biggest election of ever, to try to get money.
I've been there multiple times.
Right.
We just
You
there
don't-
this past
you
week.
don't know how many times in meetings I've been in Albany,
Right.
Kingston, and Scared. You have no idea.
Right.
Okay, I've been there as many times, holding my hand out, say, please,
Right.
on behalf of you folks. And no,
Well-
we didn't create the water district. Your predecessors who owned the property did in
Yes.
nineteen
We didn't
seventy-four.
even live here when the water
I
lines
said your
broke and we're paying
predecessors
for it.
did.
Yeah,
Your
it's,
predecessors did.
and you're
Not
not,
you.
and you're
I'm
not
not-
alone.
And there, by the way,
Everywhere,
very few people.
But
from
he doesn't even
1974.
have the water line and he's paying for it.
Very few people who were there in seventy-four are still there.
Yep.
Very few.
But very few, half of them, because they're all home in bed right now. Artie's been there for 40-some years, he was telling me. 50 years he's been there.
then he would remember the plastic pipes and he would
Right.
remember petitioning for the water district.
Yeah. Louise across the street, she's 80-some years
Yeah.
old.
Yeah.
She's not showing up to complain about this.
So,
Poor Phyllis, she's in a nursing home now.
What's the
She
plan?
can't be.
well,
here to
so
complain.
the project's almost finished. And, you know, on the financing, I think that's something that the town is working on, that, what that difference is. But the goal is, there is no motivation for anybody to make this project more expensive. There is no motivation to not go try to find ways to offset the costs. That it is what it is, right? I know that that's not very satisfactory, but I can only tell you what I can tell you that is truth and fact, and we may not like it. But I am not here to lie to you. I am not here to tell you, oh, don't worry about it. It's all going to be better tomorrow, because it is what it is. As much as that may be frustrating, but know that, you know, this has a long history, right? Like in the 70s, somebody made some really bad decisions and we are all now living with those consequences.
Well, that happens everywhere, so,
It does.
you know, the finger pointing doesn't help. It doesn't work.
We have what we have.
The town to the people for the town, it's not.
We have the situation that we have, right? That original development, when I was looking at that, was supposed to have hundreds of homes. That was the original. Can you imagine in your neighborhood having hundreds of neighbors? It's kind of absurd. The whole thing doesn't make a lot of sense. So, but I wasn't here in the 70s. I don't know what the thought process was. But the subdivision was approved and the water system was approved.
And we can't have wells.
That I don't know. I don't know about.
It should
We
be
can't opt out of the water system if we have a well, we still have to
It should
pay.
be said that the $332,000 had to be allocated by December 31st.
It did,
of
yes.
this
So
year.
also, back when this all first came out and we had to pay the extra $157 plus on our water bills, it was said that, the grant was coming down, but it couldn't be used to cover that cost.
That's right.
But then you're saying there's no strings attached to the money that they gave us, the COVID money, so why couldn't we use
You
that?
can't use it for anything that happened in the past. It has to be
So
for a
interim-
project that you are doing today.
But that, if we used it for that, we would not be replacing the old lines.
The rest of the lines, right?
The rest of the 120-year-old lines would still be untouched for who knows how long.
Another grant would probably come down for that then. I mean,
Well, so I gotta tell you, I've been doing this for 35 years. I've done every grant known to man, federal, state, regional, local. I've never seen one that would come in and pay for this. It's just that they don't, because water lines and sewer lines are considered to be, you're supposed to have, as a community, once you've built it, you're supposed to pay to maintain it. It's just like bridges. Why are our bridges falling apart? Because we don't maintain them. If we maintain them, if we as a society said we're gonna pay to maintain our bridges, you wouldn't have these incredibly expensive highway projects. We just don't. We don't believe in maintenance. We don't, it's not, one of my politicians is not politically popular, right? At the end of the day, when you replace a water line, people don't get to take a better shower. They're just taking a shower through a new water
I mean,
line.
do you know how many times a year I have to clean the agitator from my kitchen sink because it completely loses water because there's chunks of wood in it?
There's chunks of,
black
it's
gum
metal
in
from
the
this
water.
water line, which is being replaced with that
And
water
it's
line.
Slivers of wood.
It's, well, there's no wood in the
Yeah,
system,
you've
but
already
it's
said
it's
that,
metal.
you know,
It's that cast iron, it's metal. And that, and do you want that? So this project will eliminate it.
But I can't even drink my water.
Well,
It makes me physically sick.
So that, that should not be the case if
Just
it's,
changed her water filter and the thing, it was brown. It's only been like a
Yeah.
month.
the brown is caused by this, right?
Sounds like a DOH issue.
Absolutely. Take a sample, take it to them. because maybe that will help them approve this project so we can not have that happen anymore. Their office is
Another
2
thing
Hill
is-
Street in Oneonta. Take them a water sample and tell them, approve this project now.
I mean, I have a lease, so I'm not driving out to Orion. That doesn't sound like it should be my job. That should be like a town board member's job.
So
We
we've,
have been to many of senators and offices trying to get grant funding, but it's not always available and it's very narrow in what you can
We
use.
just had Joe Biden in office that was giving money away like. it
well,
was-
that's
it
this
was
three,
coming off
that's
the
this
machine.
$330,000. That came from Joe Biden.
Right.
That's what you
By the
got.
way, I had to get approval to spend the $330,000 on you people.
But there was no strings attached, so it's kind
No,
of confusing the way.
no,
No,
it
this, no strings
This
attached
is
meant
money for the entire town.
town, not just for 40
Entire
people.
town, they asked, why aren't you giving, most of the town of Cooksaki bought new plow trucks?
Well, business
Because that
as
benefits the
usual,
whole town.
business as usual seems to be getting grants to pay for
Yeah.
whatever it is that you want to do.
I had
I live in Cooksaki, but I own another house in Sheller Park.
Yep. So then in
I see the
Cooksaki,
difference.
you know, we get as many,
Huge
we get as
grants.
many,
You
right,
write
we
that
get as
down?
many grants as we
I
can.
don't.
You know, right?
No,
Oh.
no.
We get as many grants, because we're Cooksakie's engineer too. The town of Cooksaki spent its ARPA money replacing water lines on Ely Street and on Kings Road for the exact same reason. Because those lines were ancient and there was no way to pay for them that wouldn't bury the property owners. So they used their ARPA money to do that.
Which infrastructure is a problem everywhere.
It is.
But what is our plan? What's the plan? I don't think I still understand why we're here. I mean, I like to be here because I don't really get good information, and if I'm wrong about something, please correct me. And I was on Facebook and I said, please correct me if I'm wrong. This is all I have. So what are we doing?
Well, I mean, so we're gonna finish the project so that we're gonna get rid of your metal shards in your water. You're not gonna have the risk that 100 and whatever your old water line's gonna blow up tomorrow and you're not gonna have water, right? So, and it's a really good long-term investment. So my plan is
For who?
we are gonna finish for you.
For me, it's gonna cost me $500 a quarter. How
I,
is that a good investment?
well, because at the end of
And
the,
what am I
I'm
getting out of it?
assuming you take a
'Cause I don't
shower.
drink it.
Okay, well, that's fine. All I can say is my plan is we're gonna finish the project. That's the plan, right? That's the only plan I can speak to, is we were hired to do this project, we are gonna finish the project. That's the only plan I can speak to, and it should be finished in the next couple of weeks.
Or we abolish the
great.
water district and all get wells.
Abolish
But the
it.
debt continues.
Yeah, the debt doesn't go away.
That doesn't
So
go away.
that is New York State
By the
law.
way, if the community had said, back when that water main broke, on June
We'll
the 1st, 2020, don't bother, we don't want a water system, we would have backed away from it.
I didn't
That's
own my
not-
house when that happened.
Okay. But the residents of that community, I remember sitting over at the park. Remember, if we couldn't even get close to each other, had to have 6 feet and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Couldn't meet indoors. No one said abandon that water district. Nobody.
Them people lived there for 50 years.
Okay, you didn't
That
hear
was
me.
it,
I would have abandoned it.
right?
If any of nobody, not one person said, we don't want a water system, we'll just go get wells.
They probably didn't know it might have been an option.
Well, I mean,
They've been here
but
for
here's the,
50 years.
here's the
They
reality
didn't care.
here's the reality of that. You're living in your house and you're gonna say, I'm gonna abandon my water system and go get a well. Do you have 8 months to go without drinking any water or using any water in your house? Because that's what you'd be looking at.
I can't drink my water.
So
Give it to my dogs to drink.
so it wouldn't be like, oh, okay, tomorrow, like today, the water line broke and I don't have any water. We reached out, we got people water immediately, like within hours, people had water to
Yeah.
use.
We did, 12
And-
hours.
Then it's not like the next day you'd have a well, right? It's a much more complicated process than that. So I was in those meetings as well. What we were hearing from every single person who was there was, how quickly can you get the water restored? That was what we were hearing from folks. I'm just being honest. That's what people know. We did not have people say, I don't want to do this. We did not have people, we had a number of meetings in the park. We talked about the process. I think every day we put information out. We had met every week
Out of 32 residents, how many showed up?
Actually, the place was full. We had people coming in
Right.
wheelchairs.
Well, this is the first time that I've ever heard that you guys didn't want the water, you want the water district abandoned. I never
Listen,
heard
for
that
one
until
thing,
tonight.
You can't
Never
do it.
once.
The septic systems in that neighborhood are too close together to put wells in.
I know,
You
but
can't
I,
do it.
Right, so
You're-
that's kind of part of the point here. I
you're
guess we can all be
expressing-
super unhappy about what's happening, but
Well, I think the water should be this water district should be abolished, and we should be joining one of these other ones. You've already said, how can they won't give money to 40 people. How can we sustain this water? By paying $500 a quarter?
well, so that's
She'll
something,
have to get 3 jobs.
so that's something that if the town, we could look into consolidating taxing jurisdictions. It's complicated.
Well,
It
that
can
should
be
have been
done.
looked at before any of this project even started.
Well, remember, the
And I've said
water
that
line
3 years ago.
broke
when I
under the,
moved into the
does everybody
neighborhood.
agree we should have abandoned the water district? I mean, I didn't hear that
You
until
can't
tonight.
abandon the water district. You can't do it.
Then why are we talking about it?
What I'm saying is abandon Water District 2 and join it with Water District 1 or 3 or whoever.
Well, they don't have, historically, New Baltimore has different areas that want different things. New Baltimore by the river, they have no sewer line.
they have no water lines.
Yeah,
They
Water
have,
line,
they
I
have
can't
sewer.
remember.
They don't
have
Okay,
sewer.
thank you,
Yeah.
thank you. Some of them have well water, and that's how they wanna keep it.
Yep.
Some of them, I'm not sure what they do for water in their sewer, but they wanna keep it that way. And they do not want to spend money on someone 3 miles away.
Yep.
In their same town. They don't wanna do it.
What towns does the reservoir feed? What districts does the reservoir feed? Does it feed District 3
So,
or does that come in from somewhere else?
so District 3 is where CERTA is. And it's the same water main on Route 9W that was built by the IDA when they put CERTA in. That's
Right,
where the
so it goes
water is
from the
coming from.
reservoir
for
to
this.
Coxsackie to us.
It goes from, you guys have a reservoir here that Coxsackie owns, right? Then it goes
But
overland
is that in the
to,
town of New Baltimore?
it's located in the town of New Baltimore, but
I
owned
didn't
by the
sell it
village
to
of
them. Maybe I
Coxsackie.
could start charging them.
So, and I think of 1958, so it's been a little while. So, but again, so
Still
district,
have a deficit to talk about.
I'm sorry?
There's still a deficit to talk about.
And like I said, my job, I don't represent you. I did not get elected here. I do not, right? That's, my job is to get the project finished and try to explain some of these things that I know are frustrating to people, but we can only do what we can do, right? I know that that's not satisfactory. I know people don't like hearing that, but I can only tell you that we can only do what we can do. So, if at some point the community wants to look at consolidation, I will say, to the lady's point, consolidations are generally very unpopular because they are taking costs for a group of people and making people who have nothing to do with it pay for it. So does it overall kind of reduce the costs? Yes, but is it politically frequently very unpopular? Now, I will say that your friends in Coxsackie had 5 water districts that eventually they consolidated into one water district. But when they did that, none of the water districts had any debt. So everybody was paying exactly the same dollars. They did an administrative consolidation to make it easier so that they weren't sending out 5 different bills for the same thing, right? So nobody, when they did that in Coxsackie, nobody said, oh, yesterday I paid $80 and tomorrow I'm paying $110 because I'm paying for my neighbor. It was, everybody was paying the same thing. So they did that as an administrative consolidation. It has been done in other places. We work in a lot of places where they've consolidated, but typically one of the big issues is when you consolidate, debt that is attached to a district is now going to get spread over everybody else. And those consolidation processes are conducted under Article 17A of the General Municipal Law. And there's a referendum. So people can come and say, I'm not going to pay for my neighbor. And we've seen that happen. So it's not, I mean, we can say these words and they're very simple words and we're talking about it in the span of 30 seconds. It is very, very costly and time consuming because you're paying an engineer and an attorney. Usually it takes months and months, if not years, to get one of these things done. We consolidated all of the water and sewer districts in the town of East Greenbush and Rensselaer County. It took us 3 years and it cost about $150,000 to do it. It was not simple. And I think a couple people lost election from it. So, right, so it's more money, right? Like, you know,
We had
so.
that in the 300, we still would have had 150 left over.
So when we said no strings attached, that's not entirely true. You had to build something that is a public benefit.
The
Consolidating
line's
districts
already
is,
there, we're tapping into it. It goes from Sur to me. Well, and that's a brand new line, right? That line's not that old, is it?
the one on IW
Yeah.
is not old at all, but your connection to it is 120 years old
Right, right.
and runs
That's what I mean.
under
The line's already
people's
there.
houses and,
What are you establishing? What do you have to establish? The line's already gonna be hooked into it with the flow of the water.
all I can say is, I've done a lot of these. We followed exactly what we have to for the Department of Health, for New York State town law. I know it doesn't satisfy you, but we did what is the right thing to do, what is the thing that we could get permits to do. Right? You can't spend money on things that are not permitted and approved, so.
In my opinion, your whole project cost is ridiculous. To go from here to there, like I said, I could have done that in a half a day. That's the best soil in the county is where we live.
Yep.
There's beautiful soil. The more you dig down, the more sandy loam you have.
So you're paying prevailing wages, you have bonds and
I could
insurance,
be one
you,
person on an excavator, one guy in a hole.
and that
And a
unfortunately,
supervisor watching what they're doing.
I don't disagree with you, but look at any public construction project, they are very expensive and there's a reason. So I don't disagree with you, but
So Mary Beth, just a simple question. The gap, the $90,000, that's gonna be tacked on to the other repair bill?
that's not above my pay grade. I don't have that.
Can you answer that?
Yeah, well, we have a total estimate, including the engineering cost, of about 425, is that about right, Mary Beth?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, and we have 332,000.
Okay.
The gap is the responsibility of the people in the water district.
So that'll be tacked on to the repair bill of.
Yes, we are seeking out other alternatives, so I would love to be able to tell you I have one, but I don't have one in my hand. Okay,
I have another
I have
question.
some potentials,
What
but I
about the
do not
people,
have it in my hand.
what about the people that aren't paying that extra
It gets re-levied on their
on
taxes.
their taxes? Okay,
How many people aren't paying?
there's a few.
I'd say about a half a dozen.
How many people have paid off like the debt?
I don't know of anybody.
Yeah, how much longer is this?
12
20
years.
years.
No, but I don't know of anybody who has.
Yeah.
12
Well,
more
some
years.
people brought it up that they were gonna pay it off at the one meeting that.
Oh, upfront money paid off, nobody.
Someone pays 4 quarters upfront. One person pays the 157 times 4 upfront. One person.
Yeah, there's one person who just pays the whole year instead of paying it quarterly. But aside from that, it's a 15-year bond. For those, I thought I heard that question somewhere.
Oh, I thought it was 10. I don't know.
No, it was a 15. The first year was 2021, and so the first year of payment was 22. So we've paid 22, 23, 24, and 25. We've got 4 out of 15 behind us. 11 more, yes.
Unless people can change the mind of the community and share costs, because something's gonna happen down the road that they're gonna need it too. But that's just not so easy to do. It's just, it can happen, but
This
it doesn't
the
happen.
whole problem, I mean, for those who've been here a length of time, the problems with the water system in that area, it's not brand new stuff.
Mhm.
I believe it was on your property back in the early 2000s. There was a big leak, is that correct?
Whose property?
Carlson, yours.
Maybe
What-
before.
What year did you guys move there?
What's that?
We were there in 2017.
No, it was before that. It was probably
Yeah.
We were
05-ish.
down the other.
In that
way.
range?
Other house, yeah.
It was about 2005. There was a water main break.
Okay.
And Delaware Engineering came to the town board, am I right?
Yeah.
And said, you got a pipe that's 98 years old. You need to replace it. The town board didn't do anything with it. But the problem didn't go away. It continued. Of course it does.
Of course,
What do you think happens in 20, you're absolutely right, it got worse. 20-something years later, it's gotta, I mean, when you're at 95 years and now you're at 115, you got a problem. You know, quite truthfully, I I'm hearing the pain that people are presenting here. And I don't question why the folks, our predecessors, pushed it off. Because we'd have 25, 30 angry people 25 years ago.
Well, I could deal with some angry residents if they're contributing towards this water bill, because we all pay school taxes, and how many of us have kids in school? Well, I don't have any kids in school. She don't have any kids in school, and they hammered me. And then they voted, and they're gonna hammer us again next year.
Well,
And then on a Tuesday vote, when they send out a notice on Friday for it, but that's a whole different subject.
I did hear someone, pardon me if I didn't hear it correctly. But I have pointed out that, a few of us have knocked on the doors of our state senator and our assemblyman. I've been to DOH. I've been to a lot of different places. Trying to see what we can get. EFC, different granting organizations. And some of the struggles Mary Beth pointed out, I've experienced. Although I'm understanding, and I think Janet could perhaps weigh in on this a little, having experience with the New York State Senate, that they like to hear from constituents, not just me. So someone has said, it's not my job, and I don't remember who said that. On the other hand, if more people did do that, instead of just me going down to Kingston a couple of times, more voices the better. That's my opinion. And I think that's how, most of our, assemblymen and senators respond, is to constituents. That's who they want to
We
respond.
were there. We went to the offices, and they did.
Okay, well, I'm glad to hear that. I didn't know about it.
nothing.
They,
I went to Chris Tagg's wedding.
yeah, I didn't know.
We love Chris, but he's in the minority.
And I
Yeah,
still
so-
wasn't able to get anything, we had the same issue with Cobble Story.
What's your maintenance plan going forward with the line?
So the new line should, need very little maintenance. That's one of the reasons it's being designed the way that it is. I mean, one of the other issues, right, is the old line runs underneath people's houses. You can't maintain it, right?
We're gonna have
Literally
our
underneath
own
people's houses.
line from that pipe to our pipe will be our own line.
So your line from the main in is your service connection, that's yours.
Right.
You own that part, it's all yours. But for the main line, it's moved to a new alignment where we have a permanent easement, so we can always get in there and maintain it. This type of pipe material has a very, very long useful life. So we generally, once we get these pipes to the ground, there's very little we have to do to maintain them. Unlike, some of the older types of pipe, like the cast iron, right? So in that line, we're gonna leave that line in the ground, but if you were able to see it, I should have brought my example, it's an 8-inch line, but the center, I could probably put my fist in the center because it's called tuberculation, and it's just stuff that's the stuff you're seeing in your filters. It's just stuff that builds up over the last 100 and whatever years of having water run through it.
Sounds like my arteries.
Right, it is kind of like your arteries. So, we generally don't have to have some kind of a very elaborate maintenance plan, but, things like exercising valves, to the extent that we have a blow off on it, making sure that the blow off gets flushed annually, you'll get signs, it'll say, hydrant flushing happening, those kinds of things. That's the typical, operation and maintenance plan for something like this.
Right, so will our maintenance fee go higher because now they're gonna work on
Should
it?
be a lot, it should be stay this, right? Because in the past, your maintenance fee was paying, like that break that Jeff was writing about from 2005, and that break was like $15,000-$20,000 to fix. And it's not a permanent fix, it's just a collar on the pipe, right? So now you got a pipe that you don't have to worry about it breaking all the time. So your maintenance fee should not go up, right? That's the whole idea. When you replace old infrastructure with new infrastructure, you've now got something you have to spend less time and money maintaining, right? Now, can I say, 10 years from now, you're not gonna need to maintain something? No, it's just like your house. You don't buy your house and assume you're never gonna put a roof on it or a new, right? It's infrastructure. But this is a water line. It's just buried under the ground. It doesn't have moving parts. There's no, it's no pump, any of that kind of stuff, right?
Who performs the valve exercising and the
The
hydrant flushing?
maintenance, the town has a contract with the Village of Coxsackie, who has the employees and the equipment to do it. And the village is the provider for everybody here in the area. And it's, that's what you're paying your maintenance fee, right? You pay the maintenance fee, the the town hangs on to it. When the village does maintenance work, they send the town a bill, you're getting it at cost, there's no profit. And that's what those dollars are used, is to pay the village for those costs, so that the village residents aren't footing the bill for other people, because they were doing that for decades too, and the village water system was bankrupt when I first started working there 25 years ago.
So that was the same question. I mean, Coxsackie has a lot of experience in fixing the road
Yes.
and water lines.
They know the system.
They're very, very good, and they've really got a very good group of people who are working on it, and they now have the proper equipment. And because we do the work, and we've been doing the work for so long, like all of the records are available to them. There's no, oh, that was done by somebody else over here, and we don't have those plans. Now they have all of the records for the whole system all in one place. So they need, like in the past, when we started here, we were looking at maps. It's a magic marker on a sheet of paper, and somebody's saying, yeah, there's the water line. Like if you go down by the prisons down in Coxsackie in the town, there's a field coming back kind of Kings Road, Bailey Street. There's that giant field. There were water lines just running through that field. Nobody knew where they were. We had a break, closed both valves, and we went out there literally, and we were just testing for chlorine to see if we could figure out where the break was. Because there was no way to find the line, because it was a magic marker, right? Like, that's not a way to run a water system. So when we replaced it, this will shock you, we actually put tracer on it, and we actually know exactly where it is. So we can go find it if we need to, right? So over time, we've been doing things like that. We've been, that is good for sort of longevity, because again, you're always gonna need water at your house, whether you drink it or not, but you're gonna shower, you're gonna use water for purposes, you always need water at your house, right? So, that's one of those things where when we say it's a good investment, that's why.
Okay, the new pipe, the old pipe hasn't been cut yet, right? It's still intact, the original pipe. You haven't made any connections with any new pipes,
We
right?
don't have Department of Health approval to do that yet, so we're
Okay,
waiting for the. Final.
So when the old pipe is removed, how do we get a section of it?
The old pipe is staying in the ground, we're not taking it out
No,
because it
that's
costs
why I
money.
want a section of it so I could take it to my politicians.
Yeah.
And put it on their desk
So
and
we
say,
actually have a section from when we did the throughway work in our
Yeah.
office. We actually have a collection
We
of
didn't
these
think
pipes.
anybody wanted it, but, hey, you never
put it
know.
right on their desk.
Yeah,
Listen,
that's one of the reasons we collect them.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and some are better than others when you
We
do
do,
that,
I have
right?
some really great
Well,
pictures. We
yeah.
found an out of service wooden water line in Hudson. We were doing some work there recently. It was out of service, it wasn't being used, but we actually excavated one of the old wooden water lines.
Right, and I could always take it up to Channel 6 News like that guy did about his parents and have an interview and show with Channel 6 News
I'm
and say,
recommending
look,
you not to.
here's
though,
our
but-
pipe. Here's our pipe. This is
think you
what
better
we
be
have to
careful about
pay.
what was buried.
Yeah, exactly.
And some of the short-term thoughts in terms of finance. So maybe Mary Beth needs to put some fingers in her ears. But, there's a requirement. First off, the town would be loaning. That's the only way we can do this, because the town-wide cannot support the costs for a district, any improvement district, as you alluded to. The town can front the money, but there's a 1-year
We've
loan
been through this.
perspective. Okay, that's it, for 1 year. So the building or the construction hopefully will end rather soon, as Mary Beth suggested. We will be receiving a bill. We have the ARPA money still in the bank with residuals after engineering and so forth have already been, not entirely paid, but substantially. And we're going to pay out of the ARPA money for what we can. There's going to be a gap. We just pointed it out. There's going to be a gap. The plan is that we're going to pay it after the first of the year. The difference. Okay? That's when the loan from the town to the water district begins. All that really does is give us more time to try to find outside funding. That's all that does. But we're trying to push off that date by which that loan has to be paid back to the town general fund for as long as we can, so that it doesn't have to be paid back. Again, hopefully that we can get some funding from somewhere. There is something in the back of my head that might be helpful. Mary Beth and I spoke about it earlier today. We have in the caveats of that money have to be thoroughly examined. The town board members know of this thing called the Chippy money, right? I see two of them here, three of them here. The Chippy money is the Champlain Hudson Power Express.
I think we
When
start
that
getting-
project, when
we
that,
start getting $210,000 a year in 2027?
when that project is complete and
Right.
operational, they had actually suggested at the beginning, 2026. Now it's 2027. I'm not going to, put a specific date, but the town will get funding in 2027 as it stands now. If it's 2028, then it becomes a problem.
Hmm.
So what are we thinking of here? We pay down on from the town funds, general funds, loan it to the district in 2026. Wish that the Chippy money gets done properly, or Chippy project rather, and we start getting some funds in 2027. That's $210,000. That covers much of this gap, if not the entire thing. I mean, again, the intentions of the Chippy money, and that stands for Champlain
Hudson
Hudson
Power.
Power. Thank you. There are some caveats to that, and that really has to be thoroughly examined by our attorney and of the like. But that's residual in the back of my mind in terms of how and where we're going to get the gap. I hate to even bring that up because I don't want to make this sound like a promise that I can't keep, especially when I don't know the dates. It seems as though we're going to be okay with the Chippy for that cause, but I don't want to say absolutely. Does that make sense?
To clarify, Jeff, you're saying that we could potentially loan the water district $90,000, which is the gap, and then hopefully one day get it back from Chippy grants,
Or other
pay
grant,
that off.
or another grant. I'm not going to give up on the other grant.
Right.
But
We look for other-
basically, all that does is it give us more time
Right.
to find a different grant. And it just strings it out. But it's not a promise it's going away. I
Right.
don't want to imply that.
Mhm.
But it's all I have. I don't have anything else. I wish, again, I beg for money for this. I don't have anything in this.
Give
I
me
don't
a
have
piece of that pipe. Give me a piece of that pipe, I'll take it. I'll take it.
I'd love to be with you when you do it.
Oh, yeah, I'll take it right to it, put it right on the desk.
I'd like to watch it and
Well,
see how
yeah,
that goes
2-foot
down.
section, that's all.
Glad to see how that
That
goes
right
down.
at the collar where it built up real good when it was going into the next
And your
pipe.
water filter, take that.
I will tell you.
I told
Yeah,
you.
bring that too.
I think the pipe alone would do it, just
Yeah,
the smell of it would.
I will tell you, our senators and assembly who are used to that, they have their own collections because you're not alone. This is happening everywhere,
Well,
unfortunately.
On top of my $350 electric bill that Central Hudson won't correct every month.
Oh, my.
When it's just me living in the house and I barely use electric and nothing has changed in 5 years. And then you want to add more money on top of my water bill, and then my propane bill is going up because that price is going up too. And then my oil bill is going up because how am I supposed to replace these appliances in my house and switch to an electric water heater when I'm trying to get my head above water?
And everything
I
else
work
is
tuned
going
out,
up
I
too.
work 70
Yeah.
hours a week, like I'm drowning here.
Well, no one here wants to have your more money for the water district fund. Nobody wants it. And, yeah, I wish to say that everything won't be as expensive, and I'm talking about everything else too, but I can't guarantee it. So anyway, that's the rough plan for financing. I haven't gone over this with everybody, because, in fact, Mary Beth and I talked about Chippy this morning.
We did.
And again, I was on the phone with Department of Health after I got done talking to you.
Yep.
We haven't given up on this. But I don't know.
Is there anything like in the history on why they didn't replace those pipes under the thruway when it went through in 53?
Well,
Yes, actually.
go ahead.
So-
I'd like to hear this too.
Yeah, when they were building the thruway, right, when they were designing the thruway, and as you said, it was construction in 52 and 53, there were a number of water crossings, including Catskills pipes actually come from upland and cross in leads underneath the thruway. There was this as well. what was happening was that at the time, Coxsackie had already built or was contemplating building the connection that's on the 81 Route 81 bridge that connects the Medway and Climax reservoirs down into the village. So they were already in the process of abandoning that connection because the dam up at what is now the Sportsman's Club, it's all karst topography. So it was carbonic acid, right? Acid rain, right? Was actually undermining it. So it was leaking. So there wasn't enough water. And what really pushed it, they were already doing it. The thruway, there's actually, when you go look at those construction notes, there was a vault that was supposed to carry that line underneath the thruway. They were going to install one just like they did in Catskill. There's actually a hand cross off with a note saying abandoned. So the thruway was told that that line underneath was abandoned. Now remember our timeline, right? This is 1950 something. Scheller Park subdivision wasn't built until the 70s. So the thruway already had gone through, right? So they believed that the 81 pipe was going to carry water into the village. There was no water service on 9W. That is all very modern. That just happened when CERTA was built in the early 2000s. So there was no water out there. They had no reason to believe that they needed to maintain that water line. So we actually went to the thruway when the break happened and we lost 6 inches of thruway height through the undermining of the break. The thruway people were very eager to talk to us. So they went through their archives and found those notes. So they were laboring on an impression that that was the line that wasn't in use. So it's this sort of like, and again, I kind of go back to, okay, so the thruway was acting in good faith when they built it without putting the bolt and they just left it there because in their world, it was abandoned or about to be abandoned. The village was already already had the upper reservoir. They built the lower reservoir in the early 1960s because that was the drought of record, right? 62. The water line the carrier pipe over 81 was already installed. So everybody thought, okay, we're good, right? Then come along the 1970s, and this is the part of the story that makes no sense to me whatsoever. Somehow somebody proposed a subdivision up in what we think of as Scheller Park with like 200 houses and said, and the question was, how are you going to get water up there? And they said, there's this water line. We're going to reverse the flow. Because remember, the water used to go from the reservoir down that water line, hit 9W and go down to the village of Coxsackie. We're going to reverse the flow. We're going to take it from where it is today and bring it back up that water line to serve my, 200 home development. And somehow, I don't know if anybody was here on the planning board in 1970, whatever, but why did you say yes? They should have said, what are you talking about, right? This doesn't make any sense. As Jeff said, at the time you were relying on a 90-year-old pipe, reversing the direction of that pipe. It was never intended to be a water service pipe in the first place. It was a transmission main, right? None of this makes any sense at all, but that is what you have, which is why in 1970, whatever, 1 and 2 inch plastic pipes over the ground and the houses up in Scheller Park, and people were coming. There were literally people who came into hearing because it's a transcript. So it's like one of those typed out, and it literally says, through sobs, this woman is explaining how she's like 5 kids and no water. Would you please, town, create a water district and create a real water system? So that, I know, a lot of you bought your houses after that. That is the history. That's how we got here. So the one, I get everything. I get, Coxsackie abandoning the reservoir because it was leaking. I get the thruway saying, hey, we don't need to protect this pipe because they did the other ones. They did Catskill. It was on the plans. But they didn't think they needed it. And then that's 52, 53. And then in 1972, somebody shows up with the brilliant idea they're going to use that existing cast iron pipe to serve houses up in Scheller Park. That's the part that makes no sense to me. The other thing, and this is one other reason that we have pressure and quality issues, is that have anybody had a brain, the water plant in Coxsackie up in Climax is at almost exactly the same elevation as the top water services in Scheller Park. So how water works is like everything else, gravity creates pressure. So the closer you are to wherever the source of water is in elevation, the less pressure you have, the less pressure there is pushing water through your pipe. If you were at the bottom of the hill in Coxsackie, right, if you're on Reed Street, we've actually taken that water, which is way up in Climax, and we've actually reduced the pressure multiple times so it's not literally sucking the pipes out of your house. Because you'd have so much pressure you wouldn't be able to flush your toilet, right? So that's one of the problems is whenever that development was approved in the 70s, I don't know if nobody looked at this. I don't know, because I wasn't here in the 70s. I was a little kid in elementary school. Okay, I'm 58 years old. So I don't know. But somebody should have been saying, does this make any sense at all? Because now you all are living with, and we all are living with decisions that somebody made 50 years ago that were frankly dumb and stupid and bad decisions. And it's not the first time. I don't know who the person was who, and if the person who had the idea to build up there, I'm sorry, I'm gonna apologize, but you know, not the first time we've seen somebody come and say, I'm gonna build houses and make millions, and right, like.
Yeah, imagine another 170 homes over there.
Right, and I mean, that's the thing. And if anybody wants, I do have, I think you have it too, the hearing transcript. It's heart-wrenching to read it. People are begging to do something about it. So, you know, they didn't sign up for that either, as much as I know you feel like you didn't sign up for this, but we have the sins of the past being visited on us in the present. And you're right, this is a tiny little district. We don't ever recommend tiny, somebody called me the other day out in Schoharie County on Otsego Lake who was saying, hey, we got like 50 houses at the end of a road and we want to create a district. I'm like, no, the answer is no. We need to come up with a different way to solve your problem, because even if we could get you a grant today to build whatever the thing is, you can't afford it 20 or 30 years from now when you have to improve it and there is no grant. And that's one of the problems is there's so much. I can tell you story after story after story of people who kind of got sold a bill of goods, particularly when the Safe Drinking Water Act and the Clean Water Act happened in the 70s, in the 60s and 70s, where it was like there was all of this money. And we paid to build a ton of infrastructure all over the place. And then come 30, 40 years later, the people who live there have to pay to fix it. And everybody's going, wait a minute, I never had to pay in the first place. Why am I paying now? Well, the federal government is no longer giving out money like candy. And you are responsible. That is the way it works. You were talking about the way school districts are funded. New York State, this is the way we do it. Is it good? Probably not, right? Does your ability to pay for your stuff have anything to do with who you are, your economics, your right? Like the 80-year-old person who bought their house in 75? No, that is the structure of government that we have. It is not good. I will totally agree with you. My job is to try to figure out how to function within that structure and try to do things in the best way we possibly can. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. Can we make everybody happy? Definitely not. The only thing I can do is tell you the truth, right? That's all I can do. I know it's not, that's what Jeff, I said to Jeff, what are their goals tonight? And he said, just to kind of update people and kind of remind them, this is how we got here, right? But I will say that I don't believe anybody in this room made the decisions that are getting us to the point we're at today. Those decisions were made in the 1970s. Nobody got out their crystal ball and said, hey, 50 years from now, how is this going to look? Or how is it going to work? Or who's going to pay the bill? That never happened.
And based upon the testimony of those folks, you almost understand why they did it.
Oh, you definitely understand why they did it. Like I said, I mean, I have it. I've read it a couple times. It is heart-wrenching. People are literally begging the town. They spent like 80 grand burying pipes and building new. They were begging to be charged to have a water system because it was so bad. Can you imagine it being so bad that you're begging to pay? It was bad, right? So I'm sorry. That's our history. That's how we got here, right? I didn't get to make that up, right? I kind of walked in the door and that's what I found. So like I said, Jeff said, why didn't past boards do anything about it? Because there wasn't a source of money that wouldn't have required you to pay back the entire amount of building it, not less than $330,000 in grant, right? And you hear about grants all the time. We get grants for the sewer, we got grants for your sewer system. Well, how did we do that? Because the federal government decided that clean water in the Hudson River was really, really important, and they put money there. And we went and competed multiple times, actually. I think it took us 4 tries to get the grant that we got for the sewer project. We weren't going to give up because we kept saying at some point they're going to give us the money, right? Because they had to. That was their focus at the time. Right now, the big focus is on something they call emerging contaminants. I will tell you that that's a euphemism. Nothing is actually emerging from anywhere. These things, PFAS has been around since the 1960s. It is not new. It is as old as me, right? Lead has been around for decades. It's just that it's emerging into the consciousness of
Centuries.
people, right? So people are now all excited about it and they want to pay for it. So those are the things that people are putting money at right now. Back in the 1990s, it was what's called the Enhanced Surface Water Treatment Rule, where a bunch of people in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 110 people got sick and about 80 elderly people died from drinking surface water that had simply been chlorinated and not filtered because it had Giardia and Cryptosporidium, colloquially beaver fever, right? So diarrhea, dehydration, and they died. So the federal government came and said, we're not going to stand for this. That's bad. So in the 1990s, there was enormous piles of money to build filtration plants for surface water drinking waters. The village of Coxsackie plant was built with that money, the new one, right? So that's the way this works. It's political, the pendulum swings, but in all of time, it is always historically hard to find grant funds to replace water lines or sewer lines, unless you've got a pile of dead bodies and you can say it's definitely coming from this line. You can show it, which is very rare, right? It's hard. So I know it's not super satisfactory, but I say, you know, and just like in Coxsackie, we went to them and said, listen, the water line on Kings Road has been a problem for decades, and there's been no source of money to fix it. Use your ARPA money to fix it, and they did. Similar, that benefited about 40 houses, same kind of thing as here, right? So the communities, I think, you know, neighbors in other places in the town could be saying, hey, wait a minute, what do you mean there was $330,000 and I didn't get my chunk? Why is it all those people in Scheller Park get it? Well, the reason is because they needed it. And I think the town board had to make a tough decision, right? So I know it's not perfect, but my job is to finish this project and do it as cost effectively as we possibly can and get you as good quality water as we possibly can. The water quality should improve when this project is finished. If it doesn't, you need to tell us.
Coxsackie Village, their water system, I get their lab reports, but it's a well-regarded system. So I'm hopeful that when that, you know, that project is complete, their water will be free of some of those contaminants.
Yes.
I hope so.
Yeah, the water quality should be better.
That's it.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Mary Beth, I appreciate you coming. You've been fantastic as usual. You did, you know, you did.
Well, thanks for calling DOH today. I mean, that's
Oh, yeah. That guy, what's his name? He's a young fellow.
that's one of the problems. Yes. He's like looking at the.
Yes.
He's an outside world. He's like, I don't know what to do.
I said to him, I don't think you would support us carrying that pipe in 1998.
Yeah.
I said, but if we did, you